Here's my review for Grimm Season 3, Episode 4 through 6. This one is dealing with naiads. Naiads is a very commonly known name. Water spirits and all. This is one of those really interesting episodes, kind of like in Season 1 with the Spinatard, where it's like, okay, that line of this woman who has to kill these men so she can live a normal life. It's like, in the same way, basically how these naiads work is they can't reproduce with their own kind, and so they have to reproduce with these other men. And so they basically have to cheat on their spouse to have kids. And it's a kind of a line you have to wonder about that doesn't really get addressed as much in this episode as it was a big thing with the Spinatard, but that question of how far to keep a race going should you go? Should you cheat on your spouse to keep the race going? Also, why can't you just marry someone from another race? But that's a whole other thing. So yeah, in this episode, you follow two young men, meet these two pretty young ladies, and they have some fun together, but one of them gets caught and drowned by something. And the whole episode is them trying to figure out about these naiads and all, and Nick finally figures out that it's not these two girls doing it, though they know who's doing it. It's these two other guys, which I found was really interesting because they came from Alaska, and I am in Alaska right now, so I'm like, hey, shout out to Alaska. Basically, these guys still live by the old custom of after the woman has mated with these men, they would kill them. And so they're trying to kill these guys. The one guy gets rescued by one of the sisters. Not one of the sisters he actually had a relationship with and anything, but another one. Kind of an interesting subject matter. But anyways, the point is, one of the big negatives I have with this episode is just the question of, hold on, why are these girls with these guys anyway? They're explaining like, oh yeah, it's arranged marriages. Who arranged these marriages? Like, they're not. Also, I think it would have been better probably to have these women a little bit older. Maybe make the guys in their mid-20s, the girls in their mid-20s, and it's like, okay, then it makes more sense because it seemed like they were teenagers, and I'm like, teenagers should not be having kids yet. Like, yeah, some kids get married younger, but in the same way, I'm like, also it didn't seem like they were married already. I think it would be better if they had it so it was like a little bit older women and they were already married to these guys instead of like they weren't. And it's like, okay, so they were trying to have kids before marriage, and it's like, okay, I feel like it would have been a different way. But also why these guys, like, they should have picked better guys and all this, I don't know. But the point is, I thought this episode was really good. It just had that question I was wondering about. I also like it how you have more of exploring Nick's new abilities with after him dying and coming back, he has the ability to stay underwater for a longer time. Though Hank's reaction was kind of weird. It's like the way he was acting wasn't freaking out the fact that his partner was underwater for a couple of minutes and just came up perfectly fine. He was just like, oh, where is he? Oh no. And then he came back like, you're underwater. It's like very calm. I'm like, if I was his partner, I'm like, what happened? I thought you had died down there. Like, you were down there for way too long. I was ready to like jump in after you to try to see if I could save you. Like, what's going on? Like, but he was very calm and it was good. But anyways, I did like how it explored more of Nick's powers, his new powers of being able to breathe underwater, be more resistant. Each season has more things added to Nick's abilities to make him more powerful over Grimm. Next episode is about cucuy, which is a Hispanic myth about this creature who gets revenge on criminals for harming innocent people. It's a legend I would love to learn more about, though, but right now, most of my information about it comes from Grimm. But anyways, cucuy is a very interesting episode because, it also asks a different question of where does good lie when it comes to okay, so this person is killing people who hurt others and all. And later on, you figure in the episode, spoiler alert, that the person who did it was an old lady. And so they couldn't figure out how to arrest her. Though that's a question I'll have to ask in a couple minutes. But it's cool how you have that. Okay, so she's only harming bad people. These people are hurting others, killing others. And she goes from town to town and kills them. And they're trying to figure out who it is. But the point is that I think it's really interesting, the whole thing with, this old lady has turns into this vessel called cucuy who goes around and kills these people. And they end up having to let him go in the end because what are they going to charge her with? But the thing is, plenty of things they could charge her with. A lot of these episodes have the whole thing where like the criminals flat out say what they did in the interrogation room, but then they do not have anything recorded in it to be like, hey, if in court the person's like, no, I never said that. It's like, plays it. Like, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I don't know why they didn't have that. I'm like, she literally just confessed to it. Yeah, you do have ways of proving it was her. But in the same way, I do kind of like it how they had to let her go in the end. It's like, okay, just leave the town. Just go. Thank you. Next episode, episode 6, is a really interesting episode because I really appreciate it as a Catholic, how it treats exorcisms, right? Where it's not, a lot of times there's this very common idea that exorcisms is just one of those things where the people are like, oh, this person's sick, just send them to an exorcist, and like people just do that all the time. I don't think a lot of people realize how many people get turned away from exorcisms than get accepted. Exorcism, especially nowadays, maybe not in the Middle Ages, that's a different story, but exorcisms nowadays, more people get turned away than people who actually have exorcisms, because exorcism is a very serious thing. And so they have to check for mental illnesses, all this different stuff, to make sure it's none of that before they have to do all this stuff. Exorcisms, but they do a really great job in this episode of, as far as what I know about exorcisms, with dealing with it, where, he's saying all these prayers, this, demon, which is actually not a demon. You can't blame the church for that whole thing because they don't understand some of that, but, that's a different story. Start tying the kid down. And it's not in a bad way. It's in the way of, okay, let's make sure he doesn't hurt himself. That happens in exorcisms sometimes, where they have to tie someone down to keep them safe. Because people will throw chairs on the room. There's a bunch of crazy stuff that happens in exorcisms. I would both be honored to be able to be in an exorcism and be able to pray for that person, but also in the same way, I would be terrified to be in an exorcism because there was some crazy stuff of climbing on walls and all this different stuff. All that stuff that's in films sometimes happen. Not all the time, but it does happen sometimes. Anyways, the point is, but I do think they did a great job honoring the church and not trying to make them out to be these terrible people. Like, yeah, in the end, it was not a demon, and they figured out what it actually was. But in the same way, they didn't say, because the church was so like, no, the church tried everything. They tried everything before they finally accepted him. They didn't know about this. It's a new thing. And the church, in the end, it wasn't like, then it's like, oh, can you believe the Catholic Church did this? It's like, no, the Catholic Church was never shown the bad guy in this at all. The only person who dies in this is a Monsignor. So, like, I don't know. I appreciate how Grimm in general does it, but like in this episode, they really do a good job. Not putting the Catholic Church in a bad light, but just showing the Catholic Church does not always know what's going on with this, and that's what happened here. Anyways, I also like the talk of fear versus medicine, and how Middle Ages would just kill people who had all these different diseases and all because they didn't know what was actually going on. Even with exorcisms, there was exorcisms happening to people who really didn't need exorcisms. People would have their blood drained. They solve a common cold, like all this different terrible stuff. But I love it how this episode's like, okay, yeah, they have to call the Vestin Council, and the Vestin Council is just going to kill this kid, and they figure out a way to save the kid's life. You also have the birds and the bees talk of Vestin, and it doesn't fully get answered in this episode, and it does come up later, but I do like it, how you get a little bit of like, okay, what happens when two Vestins of different species mate? An interesting thing to hear. Later on, you hear more about that, and you never actually meet Monroe's and Rosalie's kids in the show at all, so you don't know what they are. Most people assume they're probably blue bun, but like, is it just a new breed of like a blue bun food spout, or like what are they? But you never get that answer, but you get somewhat this idea of like, hey, if the baby's healthy, it's okay. And all, but you also get like, okay, so how does it work with one parent being a Vestin and one not? Like, you get some of those answers. And so I thought that was interesting. Overall, I think these episodes were pretty good. Are they some of my favorite episodes? No, I do really like cucuy. It's a really good standout episode. I like all these episodes. And overall, I would say they're pretty solid ones. Not my favorite, but tell me your thoughts. Have you seen these episodes? How would you rank them? Thank you guys for watching. This has been the Movie Night Reviewer. Peter Berry, signing off.